Welcome to our Lunch and Learn for Reunited in Pride, Southeast Kansas Pride 2022. SEK Pride is sponsored by Project Q&A. Project Q&A is the leading nonprofit organization working to educate, empower, and raise visibility for the over 2.9 million LGBTQIA plus individuals who call rural America home. I'm Cody McRae. I'm a local author who is excited to be participating in Pride 2022 here in Southeast Kansas, as well as the organization Project Q&A. Thank you for tuning in to our Lunch and Learn for our second Lunch and Learn workshop. Today we have advocate Paige Olson from Kansas Appleseed with us, discussing state policies that directly affect the LGBTQ plus community and the importance of storytelling in affecting policy change. Please welcome Paige Olson.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak to you today. So pardon me, I'm going to say lots of ums and uhs. So first of all, we're going to go with a bit about me. So I am 32 years old. My pronouns are she, her. I am bisexual. So happy Bisexual Awareness Month. I'm married and have 3 children. I was born and raised in Southeast Kansas, leaving only for 2 years, but even then I was in Lawrence, so I've been in Kansas my entire life. I've helped organize protests and rallies in Iola, Kansas. I also helped create a soup kitchen in Iola that is still running to this day. I also advocated for fair utility policies in Iola. I'll probably talk about that a little bit and how went about the advocacy process and how that all worked. But yeah, that's just a brief overview of who I am. So let's get into some Kansas Appleseed. So Kansas Appleseed as an organization was formed in 2000 when a group of attorneys gathered together to work on fair courts. Our work has grown significantly since then, but our mission has remained the same. We believe that Kansans working together can build a state full of thriving, inclusive, and just communities. This is a vision that we all should have of Kansas. Our communities cannot thrive unless their residents have their basic needs met and have the ability to be active and engaged members of that community. We are a statewide organization with a staff of 12, and we have offices in Garden City, Wichita, Pittsburgh, Lawrence, and Pickaway. We have a 21-member board of primarily attorneys from all parts of the state. We are part of a national Appleseed network that has centers in 16 other states and in Mexico. Our work is centralized around 3 campaign areas: thriving, inclusive, and just. So, on our JUST campaign, we believe all Kansans should benefit from fair and effective systems of justice. Our current JUST issues are child welfare, juvenile justice, criminal justice. Let me get back my notes. Okay, this legislative session, we are fighting for the office of, we did fight for the office of the child advocate that acts as an oversight for kids' safety and well-being within the foster care system in Kansas. And we also are fighting to do away with driver's license suspensions for unpaid fines and fees. Our inclusive campaign, we believe all Kansans should be able to participate fully in our communities. It's part of what we're talking about here today. Our current inclusive issues include 2020 census, voter engagement, welcoming immigrants. And then on our thriving campaign, which is the campaign that I work on, is we believe all Kansans deserve access to affordable food, safe and secure housing, and a hopeful future. Our current thriving issues include food assistance, child nutrition programs, expanding cane care, and housing justice. It's a lot of information all at once, but that's just kind of a good broad scope of what Kansas Appleseed does. And I'm going to kind of drill into a little bit on what the thriving campaign does here as well. Okay, sorry, I'm going through 2 different slideshows. So here's this one. Thriving campaign initiatives. We're ensuring all Kansas kids have what they need to thrive by supporting child nutrition programs. There's a lot of programs out there that help support, make sure children are fed. Promoting the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program to support more Kansans in putting food on their table for themselves and their families, and advocating for policy solutions and legislation that ensures less Kansans experience hunger. So, hunger in Kansas, food insecurity rates, 1 in 7 Kansans experience food insecurity. This number is much higher among Kansas children at 1 in 5. Those numbers increased due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic hardship that's come with it. So what's also very important to note, which I did not put on here, is that Southeast Kansas has the highest rate of food insecurity in the state of Kansas. So at Kansas Appleseed, we employ a comprehensive advocacy approach, including grassroots mobilizing, coalition building, community education, policy research, lobbying, and litigation. So let's move. And then our thriving priorities for this legislative session is to increase SNAP access, remove the drug felony ban for SNAP, and removing child support requirements for SNAP. Here's the food insecurity rates for Montgomery County. I have a lot of these for every county in the state of Kansas. I thought Montgomery County was probably most important. So 4,820 residents don't have consistent access to nutritious, healthy food. The food insecurity rate is 15%. Child food insecurity rate is 23.8. So 1,800 children and so forth. All of that to say, why does food insecurity matter in this presentation, in this space that we're occupying? This is also an indirect LGBTQ issue, but nationwide LGBT people reported often not having enough to eat at nearly 3 times the rate at those who as non-LGBT folks, so 6.5% versus 2.4%. In Kansas, that rate is even higher at 8.2% LGBT people feeling food insecure to 1.8 non-LGBT. The study number of those is much smaller in Kansas, so those numbers could be off a little bit, but it's still pretty staggering to see the difference here. So a 2016 study found that more than 1 in 4 LGBT adults aged 18 to 44 participated in SNAP, so the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, compared to 20% of non-LGBT adults in that age range. More than 1 in 10 adults in same-sex couples, 11% participate in the SNAP, compared to 9% of adults in different sex couples. So making sure that we are able to give, that we are also advocating in the space and realizing that disproportionately people in LGBTQIA community disproportionately are affected by hunger. And there's a lot more details that we can go into, but just as a synopsis of that real quick, before we get into that slide, I'm going to go back real fast because we're going to get into some anti-LGBTQIA legislation that went through last year, it didn't pass through, but it was worked on. And I just want to give everyone a heads up that that's what we're going to talk about in the next slide, is some very, very hurtful and triggering legislation. So moving forward, there were 4 bills that were proposed last year. All of which failed in some way or another. We have Kansas House Bill 2210, making it a crime for a doctor to perform gender reassignment surgery or hormone replacement therapy on minors. We have Kansas HB 2662, establishing the Parents' Bill of Rights, and Academic Transparency Act, requiring school districts to establish parent transparency portals to provide information on materials that are used or made available in schools, prohibiting schools from non-renewing a teacher's contract for refusing to teach against certain beliefs and practices, and establishing requirements for the administration of certain non-academic tests and questionnaires. We also had Kansas SB 484. I personally provided testimony on that, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can provide testimony in this, and that was enacting the Fairness in Women's Sports Act to require that student athletic teams only include members who are of the same biological sex unless designated as co-ed. That did pass, but then was vetoed, and then it did not pass the veto, they did not get enough votes to override the veto. And so that was very nail biting and very relieving whenever they did not pass they did not get the veto overridden. And then Kansas SB 515, requiring non-discrimination in school district classroom instruction, public access to learning materials, and removal of inherently divisive concepts from State Board of Education policies, guidelines, and other materials. So moving forward from that, so what can we do? That's what this presentation is about. Is what are the things that we can do when these things come up? But more importantly, what can we do as a group of people? So one, we can write to legislators and encourage others to write to their legislators. I spoke with a legislator earlier this year, and they said for, we'll say SB 484, the anti-trans sports bill that went through. For every vote against this bill that they received about 12 for it. So it is kind of a numbers game here. Make sure, like, it doesn't have to be a long email. It doesn't have to, it just vote against this bill because it's harmful, send. Like, it's amazing if you go into longer detail. Even put it in your subject line. Vote no against SB 484. Vote yes for a bill that you agree with, so that they can see that. We just want to make sure that everyone knows to just use your voice and make sure you're emailing your legislators. Then join/form groups and coalitions. This is very important. So in when doing the utility policy change. So in Iola, Kansas, the utility policy is very punitive and it's very harmful. So I worked with an organization and worked for an organization to get these utility policies changed. And once it succeeded a little bit, but not as much as we would have liked. So we formed a group of people, of like-minded people, a very unofficial group. And we discussed how we wanted to move forward. We all kind of rallied around this idea, and now we want to move forward with it. And how were we going to fix this? And so that's when we decided, well, we're going to try to change city council. If city council votes against us, then as an unofficial, not nonprofit group, we can get people to run for office. And being in these groups and in these coalitions, you're around people, you can discuss the issues, you can hear what's, because there are things that's going to affect you that might not affect other people, or affecting other people that might not be affecting you, and sort of learning about the issues and a place for it to discuss, and then to organize around these. Choose an issue that is very important and start to organize around that. And how that kind of looks we'll say for the utility policy, was you've got to do a lot of research. Fortunately, when I came into the position, a lot of that research was already done for me. So my next step was to go in and have to bring in impacted individuals, people that these hurtful utility policies affected, have them come in and share their stories, be vulnerable with me. And then I asked them if they would be willing to go and speak in front of city council and reshare these stories, because data is very important. It, like, to show the numbers, show the rates that these things are happening. But what is the most powerful part of this is storytelling. Legislators can absolutely refute data and question and try to poke holes into it. It's very, very difficult to poke holes into testimony. So, or not testimony, but lived experiences. So providing testimony. So providing testimony for bills, that is what I did for SB 484. They can be either written or in person. And that in person can be done at the Capitol in Topeka, or it can be done remotely. So just a Zoom call in. It is very scary and intimidating. But it's very important for our drug felony bill. We provided the most of the testimony that Kansas Appleseed provided was from people with lived experiences. And we were informed afterwards that that was the best and most effective part of the testimony. So, lost my train of thought. And that bill passed out of committee almost unanimously. I think there was one or two people that voted against it. But it's very, very, very important to have people come in and be vulnerable and share how these things are bad to them, how it's affecting them, or how it could make your life better if you're talking about a bill that is a great bill. I don't want to talk about just constantly being in the defensive, but also here's why it's good. So then be an informed voter. Look at your candidates' platforms and vote for a candidate that matches your values. So make sure you know who your legislator is, who your legislators are. And you can go through on kansasleg.org. You can go and you can look at their voting record, what they have sponsored, and you can kind of get a feel for how they are. But I also highly recommend meeting with them and talking with them so that they have a face to the name. So whenever you are sending those emails, you are saying that they're like, well, so if Cody sends an email, then when they receive the email from them, then they can put the face to the name. Like, Cody sent me this email. I've spoken. We've had a connection. We have we've had coffee together. So then vote. It's so important. And we saw that in the August 2nd election, how important voting was and that turnout that we had for it, which I've got more information later and I'm getting ahead of myself. So then also run for office. And I know that that sounds incredibly intimidating and scary sometimes, but it is absolutely worth voting, because a lot of times people that are running for office are running unopposed, and you can absolutely make a difference by just running. If you have a lived experience and you are passionate, then you have the expertise to do this. You are an expert in your field. So also attend your school board meetings, your city council meetings, your county commissioner meetings, any of these policy making organizations in your community, so that you know what they're talking about. And the more that you are seen, the more at these, whenever you do come present, then the more weight that you will hold. And the more often, and then if you're running for office, then they know, people have seen you at these things. So if you're running for your local school board and you've been attending all these school board meetings, it helps your chances of being elected because you have been attending these school board meetings. And the same with city council and county commission. Just make sure that you're informed with what's happening in your communities. A lot of times you can see they live stream these, just like this event is, so that you can go back and you can watch, especially during COVID. That was a big thing that they did. I know my community no longer does that, but the transparency of that was fantastic, and the accessibility of it as well. As a parent to 3 small children, I know how hard it is to try to get to all of these meetings. So, and what a time commitment that is. And that's one of the things that we face as impacted individuals as well, is our time is more precious, and we need to be focused. We've got so many things that we're doing and all of the brain space that we're taking up to get these things done. And attending these meetings don't seem to be a high priority list for us, but it is incredibly important. And you don't have to attend everyone, but just make sure that you are you're being seen there, because people that aren't impacted tend to have more time. And they are the ones attending this. So it's sort of like in that writing your legislators, for every one person that shows up that's an impacted individual, you have 10 unimpacted individuals. Or maybe not that. I don't want to say that other people aren't impacted, but because they are by these policies. But to have people that are in opposition to what you are doing, you likely will have several people to your one. But your voice is incredibly important. So, storytelling as activism. So I've already talked a lot about lived experience and how that gives you expertise in a subject. We saw it this last year during legislative session. I got way ahead of myself in talking, because I think storytelling and sharing your stories is the biggest key piece in all of this. And so I say, if you feel safe and comfortable, please provide testimony and share your experiences. And one, please do it at the state level. We talked about the anti-LGBTQIA legislation that was passed last year, will likely be tried to pass again this year, or things similar to it, and providing testimony, reaching out to organizations that are asking for testimony. Kansas Appleseed is one. So if you hear of a bill that you want, you can, and you can always talk to us and we can direct you on how to go about doing this. Typically you need to email your testimony to the person. It's for the committees that it's going to be presented into. And I can go through the whole legislative process if you would like. Later, you can always reach out to me and I can talk you through all of that as well. I did not include the process because it's a long process. Okay. So storytelling is activism, talked about for a while, and then talked about running for office. Cody, actually, when I met with them the other day, they reminded me of Hillel the Elder's quote of, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? And being only for myself, what am I? And if not now, when? And it is very important to think, if you're not speaking for yourself, who will be speaking for you? And if you're not doing it now, then when are you going to do it? We know that there's a lot of things that are scary and happening right now, and getting up and running for office and going around these issues, like speaking out against issues, speaking for other issues, it's all important right now. And you all are experts in what you do. No matter who is listening, you're all an expert in something, and do not diminish that or make yourself feel less. When the group that I worked with was trying to have people run for office, a thing that we really came across a lot is people said, well, I don't know how to do that. And don't you think somebody else would be more capable? And what if you talk to this person instead of me? And it all came down to the people that we were speaking to, very, very passionate about what they do, very kind-hearted, knew the issues. And I told them over and over again, I don't want to talk to anyone else. I want you to do it because I want you as my representative. So I say this to everyone watching as well, is that if you're wondering, like, well, someone else is going to be more experienced, they're not. You are an expert. If you're thinking someone will be better at it, probably not. Probably no one is running for it. So like, I just want people to know that, and motivate people and empower people to know that you are an expert. You are the person that should be running. And if you're considering, well, I can run later, absolutely, that's a viable thing. There's a lot of things going on, but also why not now? And can you make that happen? One of the things that I'd wished that we had worked on more with the group that I had was providing support. So if you are in a group of people running for office, make sure that you're also providing support to those, not necessarily telling them how to vote because you have trusted them to vote on your behalf. I mean, you can for sure tell them how you feel about this, but if they need help on thinking through something, to just be there as a support. And I think that's an incredibly important piece if you are unable. For example, I was unable to run in Iola because I live in Woodson County. So while I'm advocating for people in Iola to run, I couldn't run myself. So providing the support that, yes, I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to do what you need. I think is important for people that actually can't run in the areas that you feel confident in running in. And then vote. So utilize this momentum that we have from the August 2nd turnout. So voter participation for a primary election is typically 25%. In August 2nd, we had over 50% voter participation. So we proved that there is power in voting. We saw communities that were a close call. And we know that that is from activists like yourself and in the groups that we are in, making sure that people got out the vote. And that is also sending out postcards, making phone calls, going door to door, talking to people. But simply voting is an act of resistance because people are counting on people not voting. And the thing that we can really do is vote and have our voices heard. So my last slide, I have sped through this. My last slide is how do we know that this legislation is coming up and what places can we follow? So organizations and sites to follow for updates on legislation. Kansas Appleseed, I only put Twitter here, but again, please feel free to email me and I can give you other links as well. My email address is polson@kansasappleseed.org. Kansas Appleseed is an organization that you can follow, or at Kansas Apple. Well, we will talk about the policies that we're working on and what's coming through the pipeline. The legislative session runs very fast. So for the anti-transports bill, we learned that we needed to provide testimony, I think on a Wednesday, and I was providing that, and I was in front of the legislation that following Monday with testimony. So it moves quickly. So following organizations that are talking about this is very important. And also we'll talk about all of these organizations also will typically give Kansas legislation updates and what's happening as it's happening, like live feeds. So Loud Light is who I probably follow the most for what's going on. They are phenomenal. They're at loud_light, and they share a lot of information there. And then ACLU of Kansas, their Twitter is at ACLU Kansas. You can also go to freedomforallamericans.org for legislative tracking, so you can see what bills are out there right now. And you can go and you can click on Kansas and it'll give you information, and then you can kind of drill deeper into it so that you can see what exactly the bills are and where they're at, and like what you're specifically looking at. And then Bill Track 50 also will help you track a bill, so you know what it is, where it's at, and so forth. You can also do this on the Kansas Legislative website. So So yeah, then register to vote. So you can go to kdor.kansas.gov/app/voter-reg and make sure that you are registered to vote. And I believe, yeah, there's some Kansas Appleseed contact information. Again, mine is Olson, POLSON at kansasappleseed.org. And you can follow us in these other places. If you have any questions, I'm open to them. That is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Paige. That was very informative, and I expected nothing less. Okay, so I will actually pull up the Facebook chat and see if we have any questions yet. None so far, but we'll give them a couple minutes in case anyone has any other questions. Okay, we do have a question right now.
Okay.
What is the biggest challenge to get people motivated to act?
Biggest challenge to get people to motivate to act. I would say that it's knowing what's happening, being informed. I know that I didn't know about SB 484 until it was presented to me, and still there's a lot of issues that I don't know about that people bring up. So I think, and once people know about issues, they're very likely to act. I think that we also saw that in August 2nd is we didn't know really what, like, at least me personally, didn't know what was happening. And I'm pretty, I mean, my job is to know these things, and it took me a while to learn. But once people know, they tend to feel very strongly about the issues and to act. So it's why having these conversations and talking with people and meeting with people and forming these groups and joining these coalitions is so important, is so we're informing each other and everyone learns. And yeah, I hope that answered it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's an excellent answer. We have another question. What has been the greatest joy you have found in organizing?
Greatest joy I found in organizing is seeing people be empowered and to make change. When we were doing the utility policy, and I had reached out to some people that were affected, they when they came in and talked about, they said that this was something that they'd been struggling with and that they felt kind of resigned to, and knowing and being given the space to go in and talk and share their stories and do something about it and to help others, that it was really empowering for me to just see like what that looks like.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. We've actually finished a bit early, and I'm not seeing any other questions yet. So yeah, I guess we can move on.
Okay.
All right. Thank you to all who tuned in, and thank you to Paige Olson for a beautiful presentation. If you would like to find out more about Project Q&A, our work, or Southeast Kansas Pride, please visit our website and follow us on social media. To support our work in rural communities, please consider making a tax-deductible donation today. And thank you for watching our Lunch and Learn.